I bought the land for the peace. 27 wide, green acres on the edge of rural North Carolina, a place where the air smelled like hay and pine instead of car exhaust, where you could hear the crickets and not your neighbor's television. The kind of place where a man could raise cattle, sit on the porch with a glass of iced tea, and watch the sun go down without anyone bothering him. No drama, no noise, no HOA. At least that's what the realtor said. I spent 20 years as a livestock auctioneer and another 10 managing cattle shows across the Southeast. I knew my animals, especially bulls. And Buster, well, Buster wasn't just any bull. He was a black Angus masterpiece. Tall, proud, muscular, but with a temperament that would make a golden retriever jealous. I raised him from a calf, bottle-fed him when his mother rejected him, nursed him through hoof rot, trained him for the ring. He was worth more than most of the houses in this area, but I'd never sell him. He wasn't just livestock, he was family. For 2 years, life was good. I fenced off a prime grazing area, put up a sturdy barn, and converted the old farmhouse into something livable. I planted tomatoes, corn, and sunflowers just for fun. No one bothered me. I didn't bother anyone. I figured that's the way it'd stay. Then came Karen. I met her one Sunday afternoon when I found a brand new Lexus parked halfway in my driveway. I thought it was a lost tourist until I saw the woman step out in heels too high for gravel and an attitude too sharp for the country. She had bleach blonde hair in a bun so tight it looked painful, sunglasses like she was shielding herself from the truth, and a clipboard under her arm like she was conducting a federal investigation. "You the property owner here?" she asked, walking like the gravel owed her something. "I am," I said, leaning against the fence, arms folded. Buster was behind me, chewing cud and watching her with vague interest. "I'm Karen Witherspoon. I'm the president of the Hellwood Estates, HOA. I don't live in Hellwood Estates," I said. "You do now. As of last quarter, your property line falls within the expanded boundary." No one told me anything about that. We sent out notifications. It's standard procedure when the HOA expands. You should have received a letter. I didn't. Well, that's unfortunate. But you're in our jurisdiction now. There are rules, guidelines. You'll find them in our welcome packet. I have one here. She handed me a thick envelope. I didn't open it. "Ma'am, with all due respect, this is a cattle farm, not a cookie-cutter subdivision." She gave me a tight smile. All the more reason to bring it up to code. That was the beginning. The letters started coming weekly, then twice a week. Noise violations, fence height violations, grass length violations, excessive livestock odor complaints. My favorite was the citation for unauthorized agricultural activity, which on a working farm was like ticketing a fire truck for spraying water. Karen would drive by every morning around 8 in her spotless Lexus, windows down, eyes scanning like a prison warden on patrol. Sometimes she'd take photos. Once, she stopped in the middle of the road and shouted through a bullhorn that my property was in violation of Ordinance 13.4.3b because Buster was visible from the street. "He's a bull, not a peep show," I said. "This is a family neighborhood," she snapped. "You moved the neighborhood to me, remember?" That didn't go over well. I tried to ignore it. I really did. But the fines started stacking up. $50 here, $100 there, then suddenly $1,200 in 1 month. I called a lawyer who told me that while it sounded ridiculous, the HOA's expansion had been rubber-stamped by the county. I could fight it, but it'd cost more than just paying the damn fines. Karen wasn't just persistent, she was obsessed. She once measured the distance from my compost pile to the road with a laser device. Another time, she tried to cite me for unauthorized wildlife interaction because my grandson fed carrots to Buster. Then came the day she crossed the line. It was late September. Buster had wandered to the edge of the eastern fence near the shared road where Karen's house sat like a plantation replica. White columns, manicured hedges, and plastic pumpkins arranged with psychotic precision. She came storming over, arms flailing. "Your animal is harassing my dog," she screamed. I walked out with a lemonade in one hand and a fly swatter in the other. "Your dog's the one barking its head off," I said. "He's sensitive. Your bull is antagonizing him." "Ma'am, he's chewing grass." She snapped a photo. "I'm reporting this." I shrugged. "Do what you gotta do." The lawsuit didn't scare me. It just confirmed what I already knew. Karen had finally lost her mind. But what she didn't know was that I had been building my own case. A quiet, careful one. Over weeks, I'd gathered camera footage, documented every encounter, recorded conversations, and collected affidavits from neighbors. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was strategy. I called an old friend, Leroy Watson, a retired federal wildlife officer with a sharp legal brain and a soft spot for cattle. He looked over the lawsuit, chuckled, and said, "Let's bury her in paperwork." With Leroy's help, I filed a countersuit for malicious prosecution, harassment, and trespassing. We included an injunction to prevent her or any HOA official from stepping foot on my land. I also added damages for Buster's death, citing emotional loss, livestock replacement cost, and value based on previous show winnings. The total claim was $187,000. Karen must have choked when she got served. The next morning, her car was gone from the driveway. For a moment, I hoped she'd skip town, but no such luck. That evening, her porch lights flared on, and I saw her standing on the front step, arms folded, eyes narrowed. She wasn't running. She was regrouping. A few days later, I got a call from Kyle, my nephew with the drones. "Uncle Frank," he said, "you're gonna want to see this." He sent me footage from the drone. Karen, out at midnight, walking along the property line with bolt cutters in one hand and a jug of something in the other. She clipped the fence, dumped the liquid, likely bleach or something worse, on my compost pile and ran back to her house. We forwarded the footage to the sheriff and to Leroy. That same day, I filed a restraining order. Sheriff Mendez personally delivered it. Karen tried to smile her way through it, but even Mendez wasn't having it. "You keep your distance from Frank's property," he warned. "This isn't your playground." And just like that, she was boxed in. But I wasn't done. Karen had always flaunted her position as HOA president. She used that title like a weapon, fining people, bullying families, even denying lawn ornament approvals just because she didn't like the vibe. So I did a little digging into the HOA's structure. Turns out, the HOA had been improperly formed after the expansion. The vote was never finalized correctly, and the bylaw amendments hadn't been filed with the county clerk. In legal terms, the whole HOA was illegitimate. I brought the discovery to the next VFW meeting, laid out the evidence, and got 35 signatures to dissolve the board. We submitted it to the county council with all the backup documentation. A week later, a certified letter arrived. The Hellwood Estates HOA has been suspended pending further review. Karen lost her title. The next week, she lost her allies. Then her porch lights started flickering. Her mail went missing. HOA board members she'd once bossed around now crossed the street to avoid her. One even came by my place and apologized for not speaking up sooner. I was scared of her, he admitted. She had dirt on everyone, but not on me. With the HOA disbanded, the fines were wiped. My legal counterclaim was still active, though, and the court date approached fast. Karen tried one last stunt. She claimed I had killed my own bull for sympathy. Big mistake. Leroy brought in a livestock pathologist who confirmed the trajectory of the bullet couldn't have come from inside my property. The report also matched it to the .308 casing found near Karen's fence, unregistered, high power, and rare in these parts. The sheriff's department reopened the investigation. She left in a huff. The next morning, my mailbox was ripped off the post and thrown in the ditch. No proof, but I had my suspicions. 2 nights later, I heard something around midnight. A low bang. I went outside with my flashlight and saw tire tracks leading across the ditch into my pasture. I ran to the fence. Buster was down. At first, I thought maybe he'd had a heart attack, but when I got closer, I saw the bullet hole, clean, just behind the shoulder. I dropped to my knees. Who the hell shoots a prize bull? I called the sheriff. They came out, took statements, walked the fence line. No witnesses, no cameras. But there was a spent shell casing near the road, .308 caliber. The deputy, a young guy named Mendez, looked like he wanted to say something but didn't. Off the record, I said. What do you think? He sighed. Well, we don't usually get trophy animal shootings unless someone's making a point. Any enemies? I just stared toward Karen's house. Her porch light flicked on like she was watching the whole thing. I buried Buster the next morning under the old oak tree near the pond. I carved his name into a chunk of cedar and laid it at the head like a tombstone. Then I went inside and made a list. Karen had declared war. What she didn't know was that I had a few friends of my own. Old rodeo buddies, cattlemen, a wildlife officer who owed me a favor, and one very tech-savvy nephew who made drone surveillance his hobby. If Karen wanted war, she'd get it. It started with the cameras. I installed 6 around the property, 3 visible, 3 hidden. I put trail cams along the fence line and infrared motion detectors near the barn. My nephew helped me set up a direct feed to my phone. I wasn't going to get caught off guard again. Then came the paperwork. I started filing official complaints of my own about her dog off leash, about the unauthorized lights she strung up around her property line, about the garbage bins she left out on non-collection days. I cited exact ordinances. I wrote letters. I signed them in fountain pen. The HOA started to feel the heat. Karen had been operating like a tyrant, unchecked, but now other neighbors, ones she'd alienated over time, started speaking up. I got phone calls from people I barely knew. I never liked her either. She fined me for having wind chimes. She once told my kid that sidewalk chalk was vandalism. I organized a town hall meeting, not at the community center, which Karen controlled, but at the local VFW. 32 people showed up. 27 signed a petition to audit the HOA's financial records. That same week, I contacted a reporter from the local newspaper. She came out, took photos of Buster's grave, and ran a story titled "Bullshot, HOA accused of overreach in rural dispute." Karen went silent for 2 weeks. Then came retaliation. She filed a noise complaint claiming I was running a clandestine sawmill operation. I was using a chainsaw to cut firewood. The sheriff didn't even bother to write it down. The next week, she tried to claim that my barn violated historical view rights, whatever the hell that meant. That one got thrown out in county court, but the final straw came in the form of a letter. It was hand-delivered, notarized, and full of legalese. Karen was suing me for emotional distress caused by unlawful livestock activity resulting in property depreciation. I laughed so hard I nearly spit my coffee, but beneath the laughter, something in me snapped. She killed my bull. She dragged me through the mud. Now she wanted to play victim? She had no idea what was coming. It didn't take long. A neighbor down the street turned over Ring camera footage showing Karen's car parked along the road the night Buster was shot. The muzzle flash lit up like fireworks. You could even hear her muttering, "That'll teach you." When they arrested her, she screamed something about sovereign citizen rights and deep state farmers. They cuffed her on the front porch right next to her collection of seasonal wreaths and glitter pumpkins. The trial was a circus. Karen tried every defense in the book: mental illness, harassment, even claiming I had framed her. The jury didn't buy a word of it. She was found guilty of animal cruelty, unlawful discharge of a firearm, and property damage. Sentenced to 18 months plus restitution. That restitution? $200,000. My lawyer made sure of it. I didn't want her money, but I sure as hell wanted justice. And I got it. She appealed, lost again, and finally moved out of Hellwood Estates. Her house sat vacant for 6 months before a young family with twin toddlers moved in. The little girls loved feeding carrots to my new bull, Boone, a younger but promising steer I'd gotten from Buster's bloodline. I invited the whole community to a barbecue the day Boone won his first regional award. We grilled ribs, played bluegrass, and raised a toast to Buster. Even Sheriff Mendez showed up, smiling for the first time in months. One of the dads asked me, "Think she'll ever come back?" I looked out over the pasture where Boone grazed peacefully, wind rustling the grass, and smiled. She'd be crazy to, because here in my corner of the country, people take care of their land, their animals, and their neighbors. We don't start trouble, but we sure as hell finish it. And no one kills a man's bull and gets away with it. 6 months passed like a sweet southern breeze. Without Karen prowling the roads, the community had started to breathe again. The mailbox vandalism stopped. Nobody got fined for planting roses or hanging a wind chime. Folks waved more. Kids played outside longer. It felt like the neighborhood had remembered who it was before a clipboard-wielding tyrant turned it into her personal fiefdom. Boone, my new bull, was thriving. He didn't have Buster's calm wisdom yet, but he had spunk and fire, and a good bloodline. I'd taken him to 3 county fairs and brought back 3 blue ribbons. The boys at the feed store started calling him Buster 2.0, and it stuck. Then came spring. It was a Saturday when I saw the car, not the Lexus. That had been impounded. This was a used Dodge, low-end blue paint peeling on the roof. It rolled by slow, crawling past my driveway, paused for a second, then kept going. I only saw a flash of the driver. A baseball cap pulled low, mirrored sunglasses, but something in my gut twisted. That kind of twist I'd learned not to ignore. 2 days later, my security camera caught someone walking along the tree line near dusk. Hoodie, baggy jeans, disguised gait. They didn't approach the fence, just stood still for a full 2 minutes, then disappeared into the woods behind the neighbor's shed. I called Sheriff Mendez. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking Karen's back. But she's got a no-contact order. She violates it, she's going back in." "She's already breaking it," I said. "She's just being smarter this time." Turns out she'd moved into a mobile home 2 miles away, outside the HOA boundaries, but close enough to keep watch. She was living under her maiden name, Karen Reeves. Probably figured it gave her a layer of deniability. But Hellwood was a small place. People talked. And within a week, word got to me from a clerk at the feed store. "You know she applied for a permit to start her own HOA?" I damn near choked on my coffee. This time, she wasn't just going after my land. She was planning to expand her empire from scratch, starting with the rental homes down the ridge. They were quiet folks, retirees mostly, and if Karen sunk her claws into them, she'd try the same expansion trick all over again. So I made a choice. I went to them first. I held a barbecue, free brisket, cold beer, sweet tea. I invited every homeowner in the area, especially the ones just beyond our old boundary. I gave a little speech, nothing political, just honest. "She ruined lives, cost people money, killed my bull. You think she won't come after you? Trust me, she will. I seen her playbook, but we can stop it before it starts." I proposed a co-op instead. Voluntary, no fines, no board presidents, just mutual assistance, lawn tool lending, emergency help, shared snowplow service in winter. We called it the Ridge Neighbor Network. 39 families signed up in 2 weeks. Karen showed up at one of the Ridge houses with pamphlets about her new community management initiative. The homeowner slammed the door in her face, but then the sabotage started again. Not as obvious, not as reckless, but things turned. Boone's water trough was poisoned. Nothing lethal, but enough to give him the runs for a week. My barn lock was broken. A tree branch was left across my driveway in the middle of the night. I couldn't prove it was Karen, but my gut, stronger than any judge or jury, knew it was. And then she went too far. My 6-year-old grandson, Henry, was visiting with my daughter for the weekend. He loved the farm, especially Boone. That Saturday, I let him carry a pail of oats to the pasture like he always did. Boone trotted over, snorting and happy. That's when I saw the spark. Literally. A flash at the fence line, then smoke, then flames. Someone had soaked part of the eastern fence in accelerant and rigged a spark plug trap. Cheap but effective. If I hadn't seen it and sprinted over with the fire extinguisher, Henry could have been caught in it. Boone panicked, tore part of the fencing down, and bolted into the pasture. We got him back, but barely. Henry was shaken. My daughter. She wanted to call the FBI. Mendez came out again, brought the fire marshal this time. The trap was crude but deliberate. Arson charges, endangerment. But again, no fingerprints, no footage. Karen had learned, but I had too. My nephew Kyle flew his drone wider that week, covered the wooded path where I'd seen the hoodie. Sure enough, he caught someone walking back to the mobile home park after midnight. Face mostly hidden, but the gait, the hair, it was Karen, and in her hand, a trigger switch. We gave that footage to the DA. A grand jury was convened. Karen was indicted on 5 new counts. This time, the charges were federal. Wire-triggered arson on agricultural property and child endangerment. They picked her up at 3 a.m. She screamed something about the Constitution being a hoax written by the cattle lobby. This time, she didn't get bail. The trial wasn't fast, but it was thorough. Kyle testified. The fire marshal testified. Mendez testified. Even Henry, sweet kid that he was, told the court. The fence went boom, and Grandpa ran real fast. Karen's defense lawyer gave up halfway through. She was convicted. Sentenced to 10 years without parole. 10 years in a state penitentiary, not the luxury resort jails her lawyers wanted. Boone recovered. Henry recovered faster. And the community? We thrived. The Ridge Neighbor Network grew into something real. We started a scholarship fund. We held seasonal fairs. The folks down the ridge built a community greenhouse. Even the county noticed and offered a grant for rural co-op development. Karen's name became a cautionary tale. Don't go full Karen, people joked. But I didn't laugh. Not really. Because the truth was, I still missed Buster. I still walked to his grave every Sunday and left a flower on the cedar marker. Boone was great, but Buster was one of a kind. And in a strange way, his death had brought out a side of me I didn't know I had. The part that fights back. The part that protects what matters. Family, land, peace. That's what Karen never understood. This isn't the suburbs. This isn't some gated utopia where fear and fines keep people quiet. Out here, we handle things. Together. With respect and, if necessary, with fireproof determination. And when someone crosses the line, well, they don't expect what comes next. Boone grew into his own. Not just a blue ribbon bull, but a symbol. Local schools brought kids on field trips to see him. Agricultural students studied his temperament. Boone even starred in a local news story titled, "The Bull That Outlived the HOA War." The farm was thriving again. I'd expanded into honey production. 13 hives and counting. The Ridge Neighbor Network had bought a shared grain trailer. We ran fundraisers. We planted an orchard. People in the county called us the neighborhood that rose from ashes. But then, one fall morning, a letter arrived. Not email, not text. A real handwritten letter, addressed from the state correctional facility. It was from Karen. I sat with it for 2 days before opening it. The envelope was cheap, the writing shaky. Inside was a single page. "Frank, I know I'll never be forgiven. I lost everything and I deserved to. You were right to fight me. I was sick, vindictive, delusional. And I killed something precious because I couldn't control myself. I'm getting out next spring. Not early. Just done serving the full term on the lesser charges. They reduced it after I pled guilty to avoid dragging Henry through another testimony. I'm not asking for redemption. I just wanted you to know. I think about Buster every single day. And I think about what I became. I won't return to Hellwood. But I will live in the town over. Quietly, you'll never hear from me again. But I'm sorry. Truly. Karen Reeves, formerly Walker. I stared at the letter for a long while. Didn't say a word. Then I folded it and tucked it away in an old drawer. I didn't forgive her. But I believed her. The news spread fast once she was released. She wasn't allowed near my property under the permanent restraining order. But still, people got nervous. Some wanted to organize another co-op meeting. Others wanted to file new injunctions. I told them, let her be. And for a while, she was. Until one cold January morning, a man showed up at my fence line. Not a neighbor, not law enforcement. A tall man in a brown jacket and a nervous stance. He introduced himself. "My name's Matt Reeves, Karen's son." My stomach dropped. "I didn't come to cause trouble," he said quickly, holding up both hands. "I'm just here because, well, she's gone." "Gone?" She died. Heart failure. In her sleep. I didn't know what to say. I didn't feel anything at first. Just silence. She wrote about you, he continued. About Buster. About Boone. About the fire. She told me everything. And she left something for you. He handed me a sealed manila envelope. Then he nodded once, turned around, and walked back to his truck. I opened it in the barn. Inside were 2 items. A certified deed transferring ownership of a half-acre of wooded land bordering Hellwood Ridge to me. A letter, this time shorter. You were the only person who ever made me face what I'd become. Use this land. Grow something on it. Let it be my apology. I'm sorry I never saw what mattered before it was too late. Karen. I walked the land the next day. It wasn't much, overgrown and thorny, but it had good soil and sunlight. It touched the edge of my back pasture. That spring, I planted wildflowers. Every kind I could get my hands on. Bee balm, black-eyed Susans, purple coneflowers, blue bonnets. I didn't put up a sign. Didn't tell anyone what it was for. But I made one small wood marker, way in the center, carved by hand. Forgiveness doesn't come easy, but growth does. Neighbors started calling it the Remembrance Meadow. Bees loved it. Kids picked flowers in it. Old couples had picnics there. Boone liked to sit beside the fence line and nap. Life kept going, and somehow Karen's final act became a quiet thread in our story. Not a wound anymore, but a scar. A healed one. One summer evening, Henry, now 9, stood next to me by Boone's pen. He looked out at the wildflowers. "Grandpa," he said, "did you ever hate her?" I didn't answer right away. The sky was a swirl of orange and pink. Boone let out a low grunt as if he was asking too. "I hated what she did," I finally said. "But I learned hating a person forever. It just poisons you." He nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. He reached out and patted Boone gently on the nose. "I'm glad we got Boone, but I wish Buster was still here." "Me too, kiddo. Me too." We stood in silence. A breeze carried the scent of clover through the air. And in the meadow behind us, something bloomed. Something nobody expected.